Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show. Let me see if I get this right. Renato Subotic.
Everything wrong, but it's okay.
What is the full pronunciation, sir?
So, Renato Subotic.
I was so close.
Completely different name, but it's okay.
Mate, I can't even get English names right half the time. Now, look, you have been making an absolute storm lately. You have created almost an entirely innovative and new MMA system. And can you talk about where that all started from and what is your vision?
So, usually every time I do something, I completely immerse myself in, and I think mainly what happened was someone pissed me off, so I decided how I can respond to that, and let me make a storm, which you was talking about. Now, at the beginning was I really love our sport, and I think MMA fighter didn't get the credit which they deserve. What I mean with that, so many people who are just passionate about the sport, but they don't follow in details what the athletes and the fighter and teams are doing. They think it's just two guys scrapping in the octagon, right? And I was on a dinner, and a few guys came up to me and say, "Oh, so you're doing MMA, right? You're doing UFC?" And I'm like, "No, I'm doing MMA." And say, "Oh yeah, it's not a very technical sport. It's a sport just like." And I'm like, "Fuck this guy," you know what I mean? We put in so much study behind the scenes and so much things, and I say, you know what? I feel it's missing something in the game where we can show how much work we put behind the scenes, and we prove what I started was I'm going to show you, I'm going to go into the octagon before the fight, right? And I'm going to record exactly how the fight is going to go. And after the fight, I'm going to show you, my student is going to execute the game plan and everything. And yeah, to prove it's so much study behind the scenes. It's not only just to people who they step in the octagon and they have a go, you know? And I understand it's something crazy to do because, as you know, our sport is extremely unpredictable. Anything can happen. You can have odds of someone favorite as a fight, but anything can happen. So I do understand it's something very hard to do, and it's so much behind the scenes, so much study, so much information you have to get as a coach, etc. And might most of the time not going your way, or you're lucky if you have a good percentage of winning rate. So I think it's hard to do what I'm doing, but also I think it needs to be done to show how sport is evolved to the next level. It's so much more than just punching each other in the face, you know?
Yeah, I feel like people get mistaken with MMA because it's so many multiple sports together. It's like if you were doing the tango and then you moved into breakdancing. And I think people sometimes think, oh, well, that's clunky. It's like, oh, it's only because you've only ever watched the tango, which is like boxing and all that sort of stuff. So they do think it's untechnical at times, but you're showing the world and Australia in general the technicalities behind it. When it comes to your fighters, though, how important is it? Because fighters are their own personality. They have their own vibe.
Yes.
But to keep your style, they need to buy in and they need to sort of listen to you. Have you had fighters that have kind of gone away from the game plan at times?
Yes, that's multiple times. I think it's very important this day to understand, especially for coaches, right? Every coach on the highest level should have a good knowledge of technical and tactical aspects, right? Like if you have a coach who doesn't brings you a good high level knowledge of the technical tactical aspect, this means you're in the wrong team, because also in Australia the level is very, very high, you know, and a lot of people don't understand it's actually a huge benefit for the Australian scene to be such a competitive scene, because you have to perform on a certain level. And I think what I'm doing different is I'm a very I can say I think I don't space only through the technical and tactical aspect, but I'm a guy who has studied a lot. I study psychology, philosophy, history. I study so much other things, which in a fighting game, you hear it all the time. It's such a cliche, fighting is 80% the brain. Like, no, usually it's a big mixture of things, but of course, if you're able to use the information, like Sun Tzu, the art of war, say, if you're able to, if you know yourself and you know everything about your opponent, you cannot fear the result of 100 battle. You know what I mean? And it's not like that. Of course, anything can happen, but more knowledge and more information you put into a preparation is like statistic. Like, I'm a very mathematic person. More you put in, more results you're gonna get out. And of course, you're gonna have, as you say, fighters, or you're gonna be unlucky, or whenever something will happen. But if we bring the numbers at the end and you repeat these hundreds, 1,000 times, your winning rate is gonna be very, very high because of that.
Have you seen the movie Moneyball?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it's
got this. Yeah, so it's the movie about essentially like a scout comes in and he starts bringing numbers and predictions of how players are going to turn out, rather than just kind of watching them play, which went against sort of the grain. And in a way, I feel like you've got this sort of way of going, like, yeah, you buy into the fighters' minds and all that sort of stuff, and you don't negate that at all. But it's almost like you do have this mathematical approach to fight.
And that's very hard to explain. I try to explain you that in a most efficient way. It's very hard. For example, if you study, right, and you're going to the university, I treat the training almost like we are on a class at the university. I hate the cliche of a fighter being like a stupid guy who cannot do anything else and just fights. It's like it's so much. It's a different type of study. Like, we go into the mats and we study specific area of the fight, and especially MMA also these days, still it didn't evolve on the, probably it's some wave now, which I'm part of. And like, I think I'm probably on the first, on the front row at the moment, which we see in the sport as one discipline, and MMA is like very complex, right? And a lot of guys who transition from singles disciplines, they're lacking so much in the gray area of the sport, like scramble, cage wrestling, and using the level changes to find the opening for your strike, using the shots to find the opening for your strike because you call in the underhooks of your opponent. So I'm completely obsessed with the game. So what I'm doing, I wake up today at 5 a.m. At 6 a.m. I was in the gym. It's Friday. Maybe some guy's going to go have some drinks after. I'm going to be in the gym until 10 p.m., So that's the same concept of the mathematical aspect we've been talking about. Like, if I put so much in and I study so much, like the results have to be guaranteed. Like, the only things can happen to me always like having an heart attack or someone like do something else, But it's interesting, I love this game, and that's my obsession. Probably is my greatest tool,
Let me ask you. I mean, I ask a lot of coaches this. I've asked Ben Vickers this, who is currently taking Jack Della to the heights in the UFC and whatnot. As a coach who has not fought in the UFC, is there a bit of I don't know. We call it like imposter syndrome, where you're like, okay, I've done all the numbers, I've done all the research, but how can I guarantee, like a Cooper Royale, how can I guarantee that I can take you to the UFC when, like, I personally haven't been there? Do you have that battle in your head at all? And if so, how do you get over it?
No, because like I stopped fighting for a simple reason, because I didn't choose to be a coach. So my skills as a fighter was very simple. Like, I wasn't having like a knockout power. I wasn't having like a speed advantage or whenever, but my fighting IQ was insane. So that's how I won my fights. I won like using my brain. So while I transitioned from coaching to fighting and coaching wasn't like a clear transition. Was I'm gonna start coaching because I want to fight, and I have to travel 2-3 hours a day to train properly wrestling, to train proper jiu-jitsu. And like I could understand early in the game, I'm talking about I was 18, so 14 years ago, I was understanding like that's not how the sport is gonna go. So the things I'm doing now, which they call me like a genius, I was doing that 14 years ago. And like people will tell me like, you're an idiot, you know what I mean? Like, what are you doing? Like you really changing stance and hitting from both stance. You're really using your strike to find the opening for the takedown. It's just like a matter of time. You might get misunderstood at the start, but if you results at the end of the day talks, that's the beauty of that. And it's many coaches out there which they do tutorial of technique, etc. But I think where is my winning point is not doing the technique, which people think, oh, he's showing like valuable technique. But when my fighters are doing that in the fight, this means like I'm not only showing you that works, but that's in a competition level is effective, no? And I feel actually probably it's my blessing not ever been, not ever have made to a major leagues, etc. Because I sort of, I was forced, as I said, start my gym and like I was competing. I didn't want to train, to coach. I wanted, but that was the people need. So I was slowly cornering more than fighting, and slowly my guys was dominating the scene in Italy. And at some point, like, well, if I want to be a very good coach, it's same of what we said at the start. If I put half of my energy there, I'm gonna be half good. If I put everything in there, I'm gonna be on another level, on another stage.
Now, there's a lot of people that have your back and call you, as we say before, a genius. But there's also, on the other side, people that say, oh, he does not know what he's talking about, or I don't think he is valuable at all. And some of those people are in your very own city. How do you deal with the sort of critiques and the quote unquote haters of what you're doing?
Have to be like that. Have to be people who criticize you, because like I love the criticize, because some of the time they're right, you know what I mean? And they highlight things which I'm not good at, and they just like my problem. Like I'm very, very dangerous when I get challenged. Very dangerous. So if someone challenge me, I might not having the answer on something and piss me off, because I'm searching, and that's why I love this game and interests me so much, is the research of knowledge. I research to understand like why these things is not working on, or like if someone comes to me with a question, right? And I don't know the answer, I can guarantee you the day after I know the answer, and I know 4 or 5 variable for that. So that's where like I feel many coaches, they don't evolve and don't progress, because like they might know that, and one's about like to get out of their comfort zone in terms of knowledge. They're like no, cannot be done like that, you know what I mean? Which on my point, like criticism is an excellent tool to understand also you're doing very well. You understand? It's like a big point to, like, if people are talking and you cannot, I don't want to, at the start, I might could care a little bit. Now I don't care at all. Can be like, oh, this guy is doing good, but like he doesn't understand nothing, which if I'm doing good and I don't understand nothing, it's sort of a bit of conflict of opinion. So I love when people do that. So I love prove them wrong. So yeah.
Has there been a moment in your career in coaching where you've been quote unquote wrong in a way of thinking, and you have had to personally go, oh, okay, I've got to change here. I've got to change this up?
Many times. And that's what is my asset, is like, I do understand, for example, like in my system is very complex, it's like, imagine like a circle, And imagine in this circle, you having some firm point, which every fighter should know in the game. Like you cannot be a fighter in MMA these days because even the amateur level is a very, very high level. It's a very high level. You have guys in amateur who can be already UFC caliber, especially in Australia. And so in my system, we have some points which are not negotiable, but with knowledge, I'm expanding the circle. Now, what happened with that? Like I'm having probably one of the most active team in Australia. Let's say it this way. Every weekend I'm all around the planet and having fighters competing around Australia. So when you do that, you're gonna realize you have to pay attention of what you're doing. Like you cannot do this part-time. And that's also another thing. Like I don't do nothing else. So what I'm doing this 24/7. So now if someone gets better than me and it's just like impossible in some points because I'm putting so much work in and I'm paying attention of the evolution of the team. So if one mistakes in the team comes back often, like for example, if we lose 10 fights, no, and in these 10 fights of like 50 fights, we lose 10, and 10 fights we lost 5 times by a similar. I'm just need to fix that problem. So that's how I deal with things. And the interesting part is like all my students are my product. That's like another point. So like if you win and like people are coming, like and now I have UFC fighter messaging me, could you come to help me with my camp for 3 months? I pay you everything, come in US. I had like David, I forgot his name. He fought Khabib's brother. He submitted him by triangle in UFC. He was down here doing the camp for his octagon fight in Australia. So he flew all the way to Australia, did the camp, and went back to Germany. So at the end of the day, when you do good, you're going to have people coming to understand why you're doing well, which is smart. Like I will do the same, but it's very hard for you to understand the system if you're not constantly in the circle. You understand? It's very, very important to be constantly in there.
Yeah. No, it's I can imagine it's very similar to when you have never done a jiu-jitsu class. It's just 2 guys on the floor. When you're in jiu-jitsu, you see little intricate details, and that would be very, very similar
Exactly.
to you. Now, why did you even get into mixed martial arts to begin with?
So my dad was a fighter and my brother was a fighter. We start with the traditional karate, and that was I'm like not a violent person at all. No, I understand the beauty of the challenge to step against another person. Like we are prepared and let's see who's the better man. But always I was affectionate about all the philosophy behind, and I'm so glad I started with the traditional karate, which doesn't really help technically for your game, but in terms of structure, helps you a lot to understand, because like it's a big difference between being a fighter and be a martial artist, right? Is a fighter can be a guy who can have a couple of fights, but a martial artist is a lifestyle. Like I was very attracted because fighting is a positive addiction, and so you don't realize, but you dieting, you have to go sleep early, you training 2-3 times a day, and you end up like having a very structured life, and especially for young men and women who have a bit of issues in life. Because I always say to my guys, you're passionate about fighting, right? You look, for example, the card in X now, and you see those guys, and you're like fascinated by them, and you're like, I want to see what's happened. But the reality is we look up to fighters like people who have something more than normal people. The reality of fighters is a fighter because you have something less than other people, and he's searching through fighting to find himself and complete himself through the skills and the lifestyle. So for me, it was my parents, and at some point, like whenever I start something, I want to do it in the best way I can. And of course, you start with karate. It's a good sport to start, but you're going to feel incomplete as a fighter. You feel like if someone slapped me in the street, I could be a world champion in karate. I might, someone can finish me pretty easy. And slowly, I start like going to actually start in the most complex and long way, which was like karate, boxing. And in Muay Thai, I was training with Giorgio Petrosian, Armen Petrosian. We had like such insane kickboxing and boxing lineage. And after that, I was like, I fell in love with jiu-jitsu because I was like in the national team at the time in Italy for karate, and the same time was the jiu-jitsu team, and I stayed with them. I was wearing the karate gi, and these kids, like I was an athlete, choked me out like in 30 seconds. No, and I was like so pissed off, and I'm like, I'm a fighter, and this guy chokes me out in 30 seconds. I'm gonna go home. I couldn't sleep. I was so pissed off, and I became obsessed about jiu-jitsu. And after jiu-jitsu, I'm like, I'm very good. I got a lot of submission in the amateur and pro career. And what happened was a guy took me down and just hold me, and I was able to win the fight on the third round. But I'm like, that's not good. Like if someone takes me down and hold me, I'm gonna lose the fight. So I went obsessed on wrestling, and I went like 8 hours of wrestling at the end, completely obsessed, and that's how I came to be crazy like this.
Now, out of everyone you coach, I mean, like, you started with what looks to be like quite a lot of young guys. You know, you didn't have too many fighters coming over. You built everyone up from the ground up. They're starting to make a bit of noise. Who out of your team is really standing out, and how far can they go?
Very far, very, very far. It's I'll tell you this, and remember when we're gonna pull out this clip in a few years. We're gonna be one of the best teams in the world. I know I don't like to. I like data, and I think is a plan of 5 next year. In the 5 next year, this team is gonna be established worldwide, and it's gonna be a school, a method which people is going to come around the world to try to that. You have to have these visions. Like if as a coach, like I don't understand how people can get content. You know what I mean? Like do another sport if you can be, if you are content to be average in anything, like especially in our sport, you're going to have less than other people. It's a very competitive game. So I want to create in the future, my goal is like create some of the best athletes in the world. But in the further future, I want from this gym to come out the best coaches, which they're gonna coach the best athletes in the world, etc. So that's my goal. We are educators, you know. Like it's very hard our job. I know you are so involved, and that's the love you have for the sport. And you see these coaches, but you sacrifice family, you sacrifice everything. To guys who maybe find a girlfriend, she's very hot, and she's like, "Coach, see you later." And he's my 5-0, and you know what I mean? I'm like, well, what I should do, and it happened like hundreds of thousands times. That's the hardest challenge for a fighter, probably.
The girls,
the girlfriend, yeah. Or can be probably the biggest asset at some point, but very rare. Yeah.
Well, that's what Ramel Luestro does in Perth in Luestro Combat Academy. Anytime a girl comes near Quillan Sourkill, he just pushes them away. So he's like, no. He's like, no. It's like, go to the UFC. He's like, get away. He's like, you think it's going to be a fight that'll derail your career? It's not. It's the girls.
And I think even on the like female team, I don't know if you heard about her. We have like Fame Mosquita. Mosquita is the current and only ever. So I came from Italy, wasn't ever. I did 5. I'm a world champion in Italy. So not 1, not 2, 5. Australia never had a senior world champion. Fame was the first ever to win a world title in IMAF. She did her second fight was in one championship against the prodigy of Shevchenko, 4-2. She won, and she's the next for beating. It's very hard in one championship to get her a fight at the moment. So Cooper is doing very well, and And I think it's going to be a fight news coming soon for him, very, very soon.
I wanted to ask you about Cooper and the ONE FC stuff. Now, won't go into the deep details of it, but what I'm hearing from a lot of these one fight night cards is almost like they give you very, very minimal pay, but an opportunity, and you kind of have to almost pay your way to get over there, and you basically are gambling on yourself. Is that how it has worked out?
Depends like okay, that's an interesting point. Everything is about how you deal with people, right? Depends what deal you get with, like, if you accept a compromise which doesn't benefit you and your career, this means you're making the wrong choices through yourself. We are in a very good spot. Like, we do what we have to do to make the athlete having the best opportunity they can, right? So it's just about, like, when you sit down on the table to negotiate, and that's exactly an important point fighter need to understand. Like, they cannot be only fighters. Now you're gonna tell me, yeah, fighter is a hard thing. No, it's not. Life is hard. It's hard when someone you don't have enough knowledge and someone rob you from the purse with the contract because you didn't have enough knowledge, or you make those mistakes. That's hard. It's hard to fix it when it goes too far. So what I'm trying to do with my guys, I'm trying to educate them. We don't have, almost like none of my guys is under management. You understand? So when I sit down with them, I'm explaining them. Like Sean O'Malley, an example. He doesn't have a manager. He sits down with UFC and he negotiates himself. So as a fighter, you have to have knowledge of what's the game. You have to understand, people, Mike Tyson an example because he's a name everyone knows, but even on the smallest scene, you see people who, like, they get put a paper in front of them and they don't know what to do. You know, that's their first fight they need to understand. Without understanding that, you cannot, doesn't matter the skills you have. I never saw, very rarely, a fighter who is not smart to be on the top of the level. You understand? Like, the IQ is a huge asset for a fighter to be successful with his business, which is himself. If he is not able to understand those things, when I sit down with Cooper, and I sit down, Cooper is not only a unique fighter, it's like a very smart guy. And my job as an educator is, if I'm not here one day, like, the kid can sit down and no one can play him around. So if I don't do that right, that's the point. Like, and that's what I want to say. That's why I respect a lot of coaches and fighters, regardless, if they don't try to play me out. You know what I mean? If they don't try to be funny and not correct. But I respect everyone in the game because I know how much every coach puts to get these guys to compete. I know how many issues are there. I know all the self-doubt and injuries, and, like, it's so hard. And what do you fight? Amateur in Australia, you fight with 4-ounce gloves, no knee pads, and you probably get you lose few years of your life, and you didn't get even pay the commission for the table you sell, and maybe if you didn't sell the table. So is that to be respect for what these guys are doing, but also as a coaches, we need to give them access on knowledge. That's what's missing at the moment. It's missing. Like, coaches are too protective. They don't want to say, like, oh, this guy. I show my guys. I say, listen, the promoter have messaged me for this money. I'm showing you how I do it. So right now we're gonna ask this money because it's 3 days notice. Is up weight class. You see, Cooper, we have fought everyone, like, all the time. Like, it's just like, and I think as an amateur, you shouldn't be an amateur to get the experience. Now you have to be careful with that, because you start having your first amateur fight, and these people are already having few fights in the gyms. In the gym, they're already, like, extremely competitive with fighters with a good record, etc. Once you step in the cage now, you have to be prepared well, or you're gonna be hurt very, very bad. No.
Now, what would you change about Australian MMA if you could?
I won't change much. I think is right now, it's probably the best moment for any coach and fighter to be here because of the competitive level. So when it's competitiveness, Like, I'll be honest with you, it's normal. It's good to have that healthy competition. It's good, like you have your colors, right? You have your tribe and you're fighting in another tribe like back in the days. But at the end of the day, you see these guys is respect, like you've seen it at the end of everything, you see is respect. I do believe one thing, have to be respect always until you don't cross some sort of lines, like when you cross some sort of lines, like if you're a good person and everyone says, oh, they're gonna not value you as a good person. They're gonna think you're an idiot. That's what they're gonna think. But if you're good and also like Peterson say, you are dangerous at the same time, and people know they cannot play with you, well, that's a different asset. So probably the only big problem I've seen, in my opinion, is Victoria is having like IMAF rules, etc. But in Queensland, in New South Wales, the point like so many guys they debut already like with no shin pads, knee in the face, and I think it's a bit too much because you might have killed so many future champions. Throw them like in something very on the edge of the cliff. You understand? Very dangerous. So I think should be in a start approach which is more accessible to get people in the sport, because we want much people we can in the sport. Is all about number. More people are coming, more opportunity you're gonna have to have someone on the highest level in. No, so I think that's probably my biggest issue. But all the other things are part of the game. It's like in any sport. Like they say, oh, you talk to someone who does cricket. Oh, the cricket scene in Australia. Oh, everyone is shit. No, you talk about soccer. Oh, the soccer, like it's always like that. I've been in any country, name it, and it's always like that. At the end of the day, things repeat always. Things are always a circle.
Now, mate, before I let you go, I just wanted to give you a chance to ask everyone this, but after it's all said and done, how do you want to be remembered in mixed martial arts?
Okay. That's the reason, like, I cannot sleep at night. You know what I mean? Because, like, these things cannot be shot, and that's why I'm studying until 2, 3 a.m. because I'm like obsessed, and I feel like it's so much. Like when you're intelligent as a person, and I think you probably have similar problems, and you start thinking, you cannot fall asleep easy, because like life, you question yourself about many things, sport, life, what's after the life. Sometimes pops a video about planets, and now I need to know everything about this planet. You understand? And I need to research, and I cannot sleep for 5 hours. I think if you have knowledge, you also have a curse, because you cannot accept things that easy. What I want to be remembered is a guy who was very resilient, who have done everything to make people be a better version of themselves. Because I want to speak about an aspect like probably none of these coaches mention it. Because how you can feel good as a coach, like I'm preparing guys, okay, to step in the octagon. And if all goes good, you win, you celebrate, and but sometimes you win and things doesn't go right anyway. You get a bad injury or things like that, or you lose and someone get knocked down. Like I cannot sleep when this happens. Like I feel like guilty on some aspect. Like how you love people. Like you get someone you love and you make him do something extremely dangerous. It's pretty fucked up. It's you agree? Whoever have seen things this way, everyone said like, no, like it's a noble things, they will do it anyway. Well, that's why I'm trying to do my job in the best way I can. So I try to put my guys in the less, to give them less chances possible to lose and getting hurt. So And only through to learning to stay in the fire, to stay like when they protect too much these guys, it's same as life. If you protect your kids and you not let them food, you don't let them understand if they touch the fire, they're gonna burn their hands. But just once they turn in pro and they face reality, they are gonna have a bad reality check, you know. And we've seen that often and often every show, no, in Australia. So at the end of the day, I think I want to be remembered like that, a guy who was very passionate on what was doing, and I want to be remembered by someone who, because at the end of the day, I want to see people around me happy, and that's what I'm looking for with my role as an educator and as a coach, to give people around me the tool to be happy. Now, if he's been punched in the head, she's a bit like that. Yeah.
Well, Renato, thank you so much for your time. You're at times a misunderstood mind in the sport, and hopefully the more we have you around, the more it becomes unanimous on just the positive spin that you bring to the sport. So thank you for taking the time. Thank you for, of course, giving your knowledge and extending your knowledge to the community, and hopefully we chat soon.
See you, brother. Good chat.